Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 18, Text 75. ārādhyātma-pradaṁ devam, sva-ātmānam jagat-īśvaram, vṛṇīta guṇa-sparśaṁ, budhaḥ narake. Translation. The ultimate goal of all ambitions is to become a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If an intelligent man serves the most dear Lord, who gives himself to his devotees, how can he desire material happiness, which is available even in hell? Responsibly, purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. An intelligent man will never aspire to become a devotee to achieve material happiness. That is the test of a devotee. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches, O mighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire a beautiful woman, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. A pure devotee never begs the Lord for material happiness in the shape of riches, followers, a good wife, or even mukti. The Lord promises, however, yoga-kshem-vaham yaham. I voluntarily bring everything necessary for my service. Om jnana-timirandasya jnananjana shalakya chakshur-militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sva-padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamna Shri Gurun Vaishnavanashta Shri Rupam Sagradatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sadevam Sadvetam Savadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanutam Chat. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Haripriya. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Ram. So Lord Indra is speaking this verse. Whom is he speaking this verse to? Lord Indra is speaking this verse to Deity. Deity, as you know, had a desire to have a son who would be able to kill Indra. But her husband Kashyapa, he gave her very strict guidelines by which, if she followed, she could have a son that would be able to kill Indra. But her husband also warned her that if you deviate in any way from these rituals, then this son, instead of being an enemy of Indra, will become a friend of Indra. So one day by chance, Deity forgot to wash her hands after eating. As a result of which, Indra took full advantage, and then through his yogic siddhi, anima siddhi, he was able to enter into the womb of Deity, and he was able to protect himself. Now, Indra has revealed everything to Deity, how he was able to foil her plans to have a son that would eventually kill him. So Indra in this verse is stating that the ultimate goal of all ambitions is to become a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, frankly, Everybody is a servant of somebody or the other. So everybody is a servant of someone or the other. Someone may say, I'm Mr. Birla. I'm not a servant of anybody. Yes, you are a servant. Someone may say, I'm the President of the United States, the most powerful position on the planet. I'm not a servant of someone. Yes, you are. We are all servants. For example, you may be the Prime Minister or the President, but you are the servant of the electorate, isn't it? That's why when you go campaigning, you beg the people, please give me your vote, please give me your vote, isn't it? Isn't that what the President of the United States does? When it's time for election, he campaigns, shakes hands with everyone, pats every baby, kisses every baby on the cheek, because he wants to get to everyone so he gets their vote, isn't it? Similarly, when the Prime Minister of our country or even anybody else goes election time, he begs the people, isn't it? Please give us your vote. At election time, all the local municipal councillors, everyone that comes, Swamiji, don't forget us at the time of election. So actually, we are all servants of everyone. Huh? Then you may say, oh yes, politicians are servants, but not the businessman. The businessman is also a servant. He has to flatter his customers. Even if you are Mr. Birla, the theory is the customer is always right. If you do a course in business management, that is the first thing they teach you. Don't argue with your customer. The customer is always right. So, right or wrong, he's always right. Just like you say in England, the Queen can do no wrong. So they say the customer can do no wrong. So, you have to be very polite to your customers. You have to flatter your customers. Doesn't matter how big a businessman you may be, isn't it? Then besides this, you also become a servant to the laws of nature. The laws of nature are very, very stringent and very, very severe. They are ruthless. You know what ruthless means? Ruthless means one who shows no mercy. So the laws of nature, they are really ruthless, isn't it? All your relatives and you may make a plea. Please extend my life. But Yamraj, material nature says, no. No more time. Yamraj says, no, now you have to die, isn't it? When you're sick, all the relatives pray, please, 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 my father's done no wrong. He's been a pious man all his life. Everyone thinks he's a pious man. Nobody thinks he's done any wrong. So please, extend my life. But Yamraj is cruel. See, Yamraj is very soft. But the laws of nature, work under the supervision of the Lord, are very, very stringent. So you have to die. You don't want to get old, you have to get old. You're a servant of disease. You don't want. So, we're all servants of someone or the other. Then, in material society, the loving propensity is there in everyone. Everyone wants to be loved. Do you know that? Even the animals want to be loved. For example, you analyze a dog of a rich man and a dog that roams on the street, you will see a big difference. The dog of a rich man looks very handsome, isn't it? He is clean, he has a nice cloth covering his body, he has higher taste, he doesn't sniff for food in the kachra. You know, he's used to getting his dinner on a nice plate in his room. Many dogs have private rooms, many rich people, they give a bedroom to their dogs, really. So, the dog of a rich man is different from the dog on the street. And the dog of a rich man is trained better, isn't it? When he is called, he at once comes, but a stray dog on the street doesn't come. In other words, the dog that is tamed by a rich man follows his master's order, isn't it? Because the master gives them love. Because the master gives them love. Just like cows. Cows, they are also looking for somebody who will love them. Therefore, the cows, it is our experience in ISKCON that whenever cows are brought into our goshalas or farms, initially, especially in the West, the cows are very fearful. But when they see the devotees are coming, patting them on the back, playing with them, feeding them, then the cows become more secure. And as they become more secure, they reciprocate with the love manifested by their keepers. So, the point that I'm making is, we all have a tendency to be loved and to love. Human beings also are searching for someone who you can serve, where you can position your love. Prabhupada has said many times that because today in society we can't find any individual where our love can be positioned, we give our love to cats and dogs. We give our love to cats and dogs and you become a servant of the cats and dogs. You don't want to become a servant of the Supreme Ishvara. Actually, Chaitanya Charitamrita states, 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚𝐜𝐿 Krishna ārādhyā. Vṛṇīta means servant. And 𝐾𝐲𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚𝐜𝐿 Krishna. Ishvara means master. Ishvara means controller. Ishvara means master. So, Chaitanya Charitamrita establishes that actually there is only one master and all others are actually subordinate to him and all others are actually his servants. So when we do not become a servant of God, then you have to become a servant of your senses, isn't it? You become a servant of the dogs and cats, just like people will not get up in the morning to come to Mangalarti or come to a temple, but they get up in the morning and at pleasure take their dogs out for a stroll. Why? Because they don't want the dogs to pass stool and urine in the house. It's okay to pass on the street, but don't dirty my house. So they'll take their dogs out for a stroll, isn't it? So the tendency to love, the tendency to serve, there. But the question is, where should you position your love? Where should you position whose servant should you become? Prabhupada once gave us the story that there was once a man in a village. That man in the village had a desire to become a servant of the most important man. So he went to the most important man and, "Can I become your servant?" "Yes, you may become a servant." So he became a servant of the local governor. Then one day he saw that a man had come on behalf of the king in a horse. And when the man came, the governor got up from his seat and bowed down and paid him respects. So the individual said, after this man went away, he went to the governor and said, "I thought you were the most important man in society. But today I saw that you got up from your seat and bowed down to that man. It appears to me that man is more important than you. Is that right?" The governor said, "Yes. That man is the viceroy of the king. He's more important than me." So the servant said, "Can I become his servant?" He had a desire to become a servant of the most important man in society. You understand? So he said, "Can I become a servant of that viceroy in front of whom you bow down?" The governor said, "Yes, I'll recommend your case." So then, on the recommendation of the governor, he became a servant of the viceroy. Viceroy is the representative of the Raja or the king. So then he started serving the viceroy. Then one day he saw that the viceroy also bowed down before another important personality. And so this man was bewildered. I thought the viceroy was the most important man, but now I see that he is also bowing down before somebody else. So after that somebody else went away, he asked that viceroy, "I saw that you were bowing down in front of some individual. Is that individual more powerful than you?" Because that man's desire was that I should serve the greatest personality. So he was searching who is the greatest personality whose servant he could become. So the Viceroy said, yes, he's a Raja. I'm only his representative. That's why everybody bows down to me. But I bow down to him because he's the king. So he said, can I become a servant of that king? The Viceroy said, yes, I see no problem. So he introduced him to the king and he became a servant of the king. So he started serving the king. Then one day he saw that the king was also bowing down to somebody else. Once day a saint had come to his house, the king's palace, and the king bowed down to that saint and gave him respects. So then this man, after the saint left, he went to the king and said, I always thought that you were the top man on the planet. Now I saw that you were also bowing down in front of somebody else. Is there anyone more powerful than you? Because that's the person whose servant I want to become. He said, yes, the sadhus are more powerful than me. Can I become a servant of that sadhu? King said, why not? So on the king's recommendation, that individual became a servant of the sadhu. But then he saw that the sadhu also is bowing down in front of somebody else. He saw that the sadhu also goes, gives his dandabats. So he went to the sadhu and said, I thought that you were the most important man, but now I see that there's somebody more important than you. Can I become a servant of that person? The sadhu said, yes, I'm a servant of Krishna, God. He is the most important personality. So where can I find God? You can find God in a temple. So he left the sadhu at once and went to the temple of the Lord. When he went to the temple of the Lord, the temple doors were all closed and it was a very cold night. So the doors were closed and he went to sleep at the entrance of the door. Now it was very cold in the night. So the Lord was so pleased by this man's desire to serve him that the Lord came in the night and put a Hare Krishna chadar on that servant's body. In the morning when they got up, the pujari saw, oh, this man, this beggar is there, he has a chadar on his body, he must have stolen it. And he got very angry, he started fighting with this man. The man said, no. Then the Lord revealed to this pujari that he gave chadar, especially to this person, because this person had this desire to serve the greatest and become a servant of the most powerful personality. So then he became a great devotee of the Lord. So the point is that we are all searching to become a servant of an important personality, isn't it? If somebody tells you, come on, here's a position with the Prime Minister's office, you at once, everyone hankers for such a position. We are all hankering to become a servant of somebody. So, the Bhagavatam is saying, since you have a desire to become a servant of somebody, why don't you become a servant of God? Become a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, as we understand from the scriptures, servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead means becoming a servant of His servant. We should not forget that. Just like Krishna says to Uddhava in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, one who says is my servant is not actually my servant. But one who maintains that he is a servant of my servant, he is actually my servant. And what did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teach us on this point? I'm a servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of thee. So, because when you become a servant of the Vaishnavas, who have dedicated their lives to propagate the mission of the Lord actually becomes very pleased by your effort, and the Lord reciprocates. So the ultimate goal of all ambitions. So in life people are ambitious, Somebody wants to become a powerful man, somebody wants to become a rich man, somebody wants to become a famous man, isn't it? Everybody has different desires, but the ultimate goal of all ambitions is to become a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, why should we become a servant of the Supreme Lord? Why? Just like people always say, okay, what are you going to get in return? Tell me, isn't it? So, by serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one observes, experiences total satisfaction. By becoming a servant of the Supreme Lord, one feels total satisfaction to the point that this satisfaction gives him the strength of renouncing, abandoning all activities of material sense pleasure. You cannot give up something inferior unless you get something superior, isn't it? It's an old law of intelligence. You only leave your job of 1,000 rupees if you get a job of 2,000 rupees. You won't only leave a job of 1,000 rupees to take a job of 500 rupees. So you don't give up something inferior till you obtain something superior. So by serving the Vaishnavas and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one observes total satisfaction. And as a result of that satisfaction, he can renounce the attraction of the so-called illusory energy. Therefore, Lord Indra is saying, Lord Indra says that when you serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord gives himself to his devotees. Krishna gives himself to his devotees. What does it mean? Krishna gives himself to his devotees. Krishna also is anxious to serve his devotees. Devotee is anxious to serve the Lord, and the Lord is anxious to serve them. And to become a devotee of the Lord, you don't need any material condition. Just like once when Lord Chaitanya was touring southern India, he came to a temple where he saw a man was holding the Bhagavad Gita and crying. He was crying, and there was a big crowd of people around him, and they were all laughing. They were all laughing at that poor man. The poor man was a Brahmin. Now everybody knew in that town, this Brahmana is unpad. He is uneducated. But the Brahmana was holding the Bhagavad Gita as if he was reading and understanding. There say, hey, look at this bluffer. He's uneducated and he's pretending as if he's reading the Bhagavad Gita. So Lord Chaitanya was passing by. Lord Chaitanya saw that this crowd of people are laughing and this Brahmin is crying. So Lord Chaitanya went to the Brahmin and said, why are you crying? He said, my spiritual master told me, please read one chapter of the Gita every day. But I'm so uneducated, I can't read. So he was crying because he could not carry out the orders of the spiritual master. Lord Chaitanya then probed further and said, still why are you crying? Then he said, when I look at this picture of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna becoming the chariot driver of his devotee Arjuna, when I look at Krishna pulling the chariot on the order of Arjuna, looking at the humility of God, the possessor of 6 opulences, my heart is lamenting. When I look at the compassion of the Lord and the concern that the Lord has for his devotees. So he said, so then Lord Chaitanya embraced him and said, you have really understood the Bhagavad Gita. So the point is that the Lord gives himself to his devotees. When you give yourself to Krishna, Krishna gives himself to you. So somebody may say, okay, I'm going to test Krishna now. I'm going to start chanting 16 rounds, I'm going to take a guru, I'm going to take diksha, and I'm going to see how much Krishna is going to give to me. I'm going to see whether my business is going to boom, whether my children are going to get better grades in school, whether my health is going to improve, I'll stop seeing the doctor's faces. I'm going to analyze how much Krishna gives himself to me. So sometimes people think like that. So what is the answer? Is that how you're going to test how much Krishna gives himself to you? Huh? But we are all experiencing the reaction of our past karma. We are all experiencing the reaction of our past karma. And just because you become a devotee of Krishna doesn't mean your karma go down to zero, but it gets minimized. Your suffering is greatly minimized. But a devotee should not think that now my suffering is going to become zero. No. Just like Indra is actually after all a devotee of the Lord. So Diti had a plan to kill Indra, but the Lord saved Indra. The Lord saved Indra. Diti made a small mistake by which Indra got saved. So the point is that the Lord gives himself to his devotee. You should never think that if you gave yourself to Krishna, you will never be a loser. Just like in the Krishna book, you read of that very wonderful story, how once there was a lady selling apples, isn't it? And she came in front of baby Krishna's house, save Krishna, buy apples. So Krishna came out as a young child, like this young boy, Krishna was younger than him, came with grains in his hand. Because those days there was no currency, no dollars, no marks, no yen, no rupees. They had a barter system. So Krishna came with some grains in his hand to pay in exchange for the apples that he was going to realize. But by the time Krishna reached the lady who was selling the apples, most of the grains fell out of his hands. Anyway, the lady was very attracted to Krishna's beauty, and he still gave the apples that he had. In her mind she was thinking, poor lady, now if I give these apples, what will be left for me? But still was so charmed by Krishna's beauty that she gave the apples to him. And then when she looked back in her tokri, what did she see? Apples made of gold. So when you give to Krishna, when you give your youth, give your intelligence, you give your wealth, you're never a loser. You're always going to be a gainer. So Prabhupada says in the purport that an intelligent man does not aspire for material happiness. Why? Because material happiness you can also get in hell. Prahlād Maharaj said, do not over-endeavor. Whatever happiness is destined in your quota, you will get, not more. As I have explained many times in our lectures, you will not get 1% more than your quota. Doesn't matter how hard you may work. So, we must know that a devotee is not interested in material happiness. And what is the test of a devotee? Test of a devotee is the famous verse of the Sikshashtaka, which is this verse where it is said, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, no desire for materialistic followers. So Lord Chaitanya tells us, what should be our mentality? Na dhanam, na janam. He says, no wealth. Because generally people come to God, why? They want wealth. Then if you don't want wealth, one beautiful wife, Then I want materialistic followers. Like all these politicians want chelas. We went and saw a politician recently. One man who took us, touched his feet. So, no materialistic followers. What do you want? I just want the opportunity to serve you birth after birth. Thakur Bhakti, they said, my dear Lord, if you want, give me birth as a verb. But in the house of a or Mr. Birla. No. He said, of course, a worm in the house of Mr. Birla lives in a nice marble palace. He says, give me birth as a verb, but in the house of a Vaishnava. Why? Because in the house of the Vaishnava, see, Thakur Bhaktinod is praying for that. Thakur Bhaktinod was both materially and spiritually very high position. Materially, he was a magistrate during the British rule. During the British rule, the highest position was the position of the governor. And the governor was always Sahib from England. And the Indians can only go as far as the position of district magistrate. And Thakur Bhaktivinoda was a district magistrate. See? He was holding the highest position that the Indians were allowed under the British rule. Of course, Thakur Bhaktivinoda, and also spiritually, he was the incarnation of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So people should not think all Hare Krishnas are uneducated. Look at Thakur Bhaktivinoda. So Thakur Bhaktivinoda says, my dear Lord, if you have to give me birth, please to give me birth as a worm, but in the house of a Vaishnava. So you may say, yes, it's very easy to quote Lord Chaitanya and say, I should have no desire. But I have so many desires. I want to become rich. I want beautiful women. I want chelas. I want sense enjoyment. I want possession. I want this. I want that. I want that. I want that. I have so many material desires. You say give up all this, but it's not so easy. You know. So then what is the answer? The answer is take the medicine. Just like Thakur Bhaktivinoda says, that I have brought this medicine. I have brought this medicine made in Vaikuntha, not made in America. I brought this medicine made in Vaikuntha. What is this medicine? The holy name. Now take this medicine, beg for this medicine, and this medicine will cure you. So Prabhupada used to say, we are all heart patients. Because our heart is full of material desires. So you're all heart patients. And the cardiologist is not the cardiologist who has a degree, but the spiritual representative of God. He can tell you how to cure your heart disease. And that is through the process of devotional service. So it is guaranteed that anybody who takes to the process of bhakti and sincerely executes the process of bhakti will be able to cure the different material desires. That's why devotional service is a continuous process. That's why Krishna says, Satatam kirtayanto maham. Satata means non-stop, nirantara, uninterrupted. Go on serving me. That is why Bhagavatam says, Sarve punsam paro dharmo yato bhakti adhokshade ahitukya pratiyata yatma suprasidati. That the self can only be satisfied when you render unmotivated and uninterrupted devotional service. So you will get real satisfaction when you are serving without motivation and without interruption. Interruption means no stopping. You shouldn't think, oh, I've done service for 4 years, now I'm going to take a break for 2 years, then I'm going to start again. No. Just like you eat without interruption, you sleep without interruption, your service to Krishna should also be executed without interruption. And we should be anxious to serve. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,